What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the final modifications that I've made to my Terminator 2 Arcade1up cabinet, a cabinet that I've had for over 3 years. I pre-ordered this thing at launch at its original release, paid way too much money for it, $700, and probably wasn't really worth that. But the fact that I've got 3 years of good life out of it makes me feel just a little bit better about paying that giant price. Now, I did a review on that back in February of 2022, and you can check that video out. I'll link it up here somewhere. And then immediately went to making some modifications. The first modification I did was a way to hide the cords. Now, if you remember, the way this thing was originally set up, the cords for the light guns just sort of were hanging in front of the cabinet. And I thought that was a big problem, not just because it aesthetically looked ugly, which it did, but it was kind of a hazard. Like if you have kids running around, or little ones maybe reaching up and grabbing the gun, they can grab those cords and pull those down. It was going to be a big problem in my mind. So I thought, what about doing something to hide these? Minimalistic. I don't like to do a bunch of crazy stuff. I don't want to hack up a machine, especially a machine that I just paid $700 for. So I took the actual cups that the guns sit in and cut the bottom off, and then I tucked the cable in. I was the first one to do that, and then many of you out there took that and then ran with it, changed things, hid the cords completely. It was a cool way to kind of hide all that, and it was shocking that Arcade1up maybe didn't think that all the way through. Then the next modification was the marquee, which was lackluster to say the very least. Did a Joe Sabo swap on that, and also, if you remember, for all my old-time original fans, the toothpick mod was used. If you don't know what that is, check out that video right there. It'll tell you all about the super secret toothpick mod. And then after that, this thing needed a coin door. I had to have a coin door, so I had to go on eBay and find a set. I actually found two original Arcade1up coin doors. I put one on my Ridge Racer cabinet, and I put one on the T2 cabinet. And then, of course, I went back to Retro 530 and got the lit coin door mod, lit those things up, and it looked really good. But there was one thing that was still missing. One thing that I just really needed to address, and it was the guns themselves. The guns are red and blue, and that's fine. I get it. These are toys, right? But the original arcade cabinet had black guns. And so I decided, well, I want to paint those. And a lot of people had painted their guns, but I wanted to do a few things internally to make these guns sort of stand out. So I added some weights, like my buddy B Kong over at Kong's R Us. He added some weights to some of his guns, like his Buck Hunter, to give the guns a little more weight. So I added some wheel weights. That definitely helped out things a lot. And then I tapped into the 5-volt circuit and used a couple LED strips, one blue and one red, to designate player 1, player 2, and added that to the top of the guns, so they mostly black. And when the light's off, you just see like this colored strip, but when the lights come on, this thing glows, and it looks incredible. And for a long time, I was happy with this cabinet. But over time, I started buying a few little parts and pieces here and there to really take the cabinet to the next level, make it the most that it could be, sticking with this form factor, right? So Buy Stuff Arcade has a great 19-inch option. So if you want to swap from a 17-inch over to a 19-inch, they have a direct replacement for you. There's a couple things. If you go to their website, you can pick out your 19-inch monitor and then choose the cabinet you want it to go in. Now, if you're talking about the T2 specifically, there are a couple different options. You can go with arcade specific, meaning the red and blue are in the stock location. But if you go with the retro shooter option, it swaps the colors. So red and blue are swapped on the cabinet. But you're looking at about, I think at the time of the filming of this video, you're looking at about $220 for that. Now, it is something that comes fully assembled. All you have to do is do the swap on your cabinet. So lay your cabinet down, take it apart as far as you have to. Don't take it apart too much. Don't necessarily have to take the entire side panel off. You can leave that on and just loosen up some bolts. Pop that original monitor out with the original artwork and the board and all that, and then slide in the new one. Now, there's going to be some differences. You have to consider this is not going to have a back casing or a back shell. So when you look at the back of the monitor, you're actually going to see the monitor itself. You're not going to have that nice metal shroud or metal casing. So you're not going to be able to attach the PCB and its enclosure in the same manner that it was from stock. So double-sided tape is included, and you can definitely do that. And there's a couple things this does for you. One, it actually flips and exposes the PCB, and you'll notice on this particular model of PCB to run this game, Arcade1up added a fan. So this is going to do wonders for cooling. So if you're having any issues with your T2 overheating and shutting down, this is going to almost eliminate that. But double-sided tape doesn't have the greatest track record, even though I've been assured by stuff it's the bestest double-sided tape ever, and I believe them. But just to be on the safe side, I did add a little bit of hot glue on the very top to make sure that this thing has a little bit extra protection to sort of stick on there and stay on there. After all that was done, I did route all my cables, and you can tell there's a lot of weight hanging off this PCB, so I knew I needed to get some zip ties and some little attachments that stick to the side of your cabinet, and then work on some cable management. But beyond just swapping out the monitor, I wanted to do something else, something I've done since the very beginning, and it's swap in the Logitech Z313. Now, the first time I did this modification was with my Marvel vs. Capcom Arcade1up cabinet. It is a great way to add a ton of bass and more volume out of your stock speakers. It's a great addition to absolutely any Arcade1up cabinet. And that's basically all you're doing, is just intercepting that signal that leaves the PCB instead of going right to the stock speakers and relying on the small little amp on the PCB to drive those speakers. You're taking the amp that's built into the little subwoofer and you're boosting that signal. You get a ton of bass, ton of volume, and all that's good. Now, there are some people that have been concerned about, taking an amplified signal and then amplifying it further. And that is definitely a concern in some instances, in some cases. Now, what you're going to be able to tell, if you are having this issue, you're going to experience some clipping. You're going to hear some popping in the stock speakers on your Arcade1up. I've never had that issue because I turn the volume down slightly. But basically, you're amplifying a signal that's amplified, sure, but it's not amplified by much. Now, you're going to need to make some accommodations for the actual controller of the Logitech unit, because if you just turn off your Arcade1up but leave this thing powered on, you're going to get that loud hum, and you don't want that. That's annoying. So you want to be able to turn this thing off, and you also want to be able to control its volume as well. Now, if you set the volume on the Logitech controller exactly where you want it, then you can just rely on the volume control on your Arcade1up and you're fine. But it's nice to have that adjustment. I like to put mine on the very top. It's a small, thin black unit, and it's kind of out of the way. Now, I did this obviously with my Marvel vs. Capcom, but I did this again on my Mortal Kombat cabinet, and then I did this on the Killer Instinct 2 Deluxe that I built. That was really fun. I mean, you really need to have a lot of bass and volume when you're talking about Killer Instinct. So this is something I've done several times. I've had a lot of success with it, and it's definitely something you should check out, especially for the price of less than $50. So once that was done, the cable management was done, the monitor was checked, and it looks good. Definitely, trust me, 17 to 19, that is a big difference. Those extra 2 inches really makes a big difference, especially when you're considering, the size of this cabinet is small, and 2 people trying to fight over a 17-inch monitor can be tough at times. But after all that was done, I decided to dig up another kit that I had laying around for my good buddy G.I. Joel, the Inline riser. This is actually the first inline riser that I've ever purchased from G.I. Joel, and the thing went together really well. It's pretty minimalistic. Curvature of the side panels on his riser sort of match the rounded corners on the Arcade1up that you're setting directly on top of it. So once you get that in place, you want to go ahead and throw a few screws in. I know this is something that was kind of optional on the Arcade1up risers, but they were wider than the base of the Arcade1up, so it was pretty secure. This is not the case. You definitely want to run those screws in for sure. But once I put this thing in place with all the other mods functioning like they should, the results were absolutely amazing.
I'll be back. No! Come on! What you doing? Come on, get out of there!
And because the volume is there and the sound is rocking, I don't even need the little rat-a-tat-tat, the mechanical feedback on the gun itself, so I just leave that off. You get that feedback from the sound system itself, so it's just not necessary. But it's still there if you want it. And so, yeah, this thing has really been taken to a whole nother level, and it's as far as I'm going to take it. Now, there are some other things that you could do, maybe because you have an inline riser, maybe do some one-piece side art and completely change that, cover up all the holes. That would be cool. That could be something you could absolutely do. You could even go crazy, like I've thought, and do a Unico 25-inch or the 26-inch monitor they have, right? That 4x3, and then make a housing and cut out the side panels and put that on. You'd have these things with wings, basically, and it would look kind of crazy. You could even do a wide body kit and stretch the whole thing out and add that 26-inch monitor. But for me, no. I'm happy with it being what it is. And it looks really good. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. So, Fox, if that's the case, if you're going to have a lot of fun with it, why is this the last Arcade1up mod? Just like the title suggests. Because I've lost interest in this particular part of the hobby. I have had an absolute blast modifying these things for the better part of 4 years. And it's been a lot of fun. Almost as soon as I got into the hobby, I started modding, making projects with a real vision, going all the way back to that first used Arcade1up that I ever picked up. Now, the first new one I got was my Ninja Turtles cabinet, and that also got modded too. Right off the bat, I added the lit marquee, the thing that didn't come with these cabinets back in the day, the lit marquee. And that was one of the first videos I ever did. It was my first mod video, and the quality was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, but it was the thing that kind of started the real thing that I enjoy about this. And it is obviously the games and playing the games, but I think the real passion I have is the restoration and the modification and the building and letting my imagination kind of run wild. And that's been a ton of fun. And all the projects I think about going back in the day, obviously one of my wilder projects was my 6-player Arcade1up. The Project 6 Men was just so much fun. It was so incredible. A lot of custom artwork, a lot of custom parts and pieces, a lot of learning along the way. And then some like arcade fusions where I took a Ninja Turtles cabinet and then combined it with a Rampage cabinet, providing the best 3-player experience that I think an Arcade1up could have ever provided. Sad that they never did that. Sad that we never got that 3-player Alien vs. Predator cabinet that I really wanted. And then there were so many different projects that just had slight modifications, slight additions. You know, I talked about Ridge Racer adding that lit coin door. That was a lot of fun, just adding little touches here and there. And then when the deluxes came along, I really had a lot of fun doing PCB swaps. Just swapping out, taking the PCB that I wanted with the games that I wanted and putting it in the cabinet that I wanted, mixing and matching, which is something I wish Arcade1up would have done kind of back in the day. Full-blown artwork packages, of course, like I talked about. Killer Instinct 2 was a real fun project. Taking Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and putting it in that Dynamo, that Street Fighter 2 Deluxe, was really a lot of fun. Taking the X-Men 4-player and putting that in the X-Men 97 cabinet was just a ton of fun and really giving it the form factor that I think it deserved. Sad that those 4-player cabinets never got a 3rd generation where they really changed those and made those more of a deluxe. That would have been a lot of fun. I think that it's sad, but we kind of got a glimpse of that when we saw the NBA Jam, the 30th edition, 20th edition, or anniversary, or whatever it is. But it was the true deluxe 4-player, the only true deluxe 4-player that we ever saw, and it was just another NBA Jam. But that was definitely a good thing that, man, I wish they would have capitalized on. I wish they would have reintroduced X-Men and Simpsons and all that with that form factor. Ninja Turtles would have been great on that. But just so many different Arcade1up projects and trial and error stuff. I remember the Sega Genesis cabinet. That turned out really nice, a lot of fun. Combining the Intech Gaming Sega Genesis deck with that first or second generation. It was a second generation Mortal Kombat cabinet. That was a ton of fun. Look, it just turned out great. Making the little shelf with all the Genesis games in there was just a ton of fun. But yeah, I've had a great time doing this. But really just sort of done everything I wanted to do. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other ideas out there and things I wouldn't want to check out, you know, and watch other people do. But for me personally, I'm just at this point now where I just don't have any more interest in doing any modifications on anything 3/4 scale. I'm just kind of done with this part of the hobby. I have moved on, I think, mostly to the big stuff. But then again, my arcade is also pretty much full. I mean, we're at capacity. And we're at the point now where we're just going to work on maintaining the machines and playing the games. And that's going to be something I look forward to, playing these games a little bit more and maybe getting better. Also using my, Sega Astro City like a multicade. Instead of a multicade, though, maybe like the shell that we can swap in original hardware, original games, original PCBs, and playing some of those games. The games that maybe you can't find, that were never released on consoles or anything else. We never got official releases of things. So that would definitely be something that that I think I want to continue to do. And it's funny how some of my Arcade1up projects inspired my real purchases of real arcade games. I always wanted an Alien versus Predator cabinet. So that was another one of the first mods I ever did, was the AVP 3rd generation cabinet. Started life as an X-Men versus Street Fighter cabinet. Turned into an Alien versus Predator cabinet. Ton of fun. Really liked that. And then eventually taking the guts out of that and putting that into a deluxe. Another Capcom deluxe based on that CPS or the HS5 size and shape and all that. Man, that was a ton of fun. That thing looked great. But it was just sort of, a replacement, or not a replacement, but a substitute, a holding place for the real cabinet I wanted to get, which I eventually got. And I'm really happy about it. And that's awesome. But as I saw these cabinets, as I would sell them, and I would see them get homes for people that were jazzed about it and excited about it, really enthusiastic about the projects that I made, I felt like at peace with it. It was almost like, coming sort of full circle. Starting off 4 years ago, working on this stuff, goofing around, really closer to 5 years ago. Making these projects, getting better at it, getting better at making a finished product, and then finding someone else see it and enjoy it and love it and be excited about it. Really is kind of going all the way around, You do it for yourself, and then you get to a point where you hold yourself to a really high standard, so much so that other people like it and want to own it. And now it's getting a whole new life in somebody else's house, in somebody else's man cave, in somebody else's little arcade. And that's awesome. So that's maybe a long-winded way of saying that I have no regrets. It was a lot of fun. And I'm going to keep the 2 Arcade1ups that I have, Ninja Turtles and T2, probably until those machines die. And then I'll send them out to pasture, or maybe sell some of the parts and, lament, or not really lament, but just look back at all the good times that I had working on these little arcades that inspired me to, again, get back into the big boys, my original love, my original passion. But we can never really discount completely what Arcade1up did, because it's not just the projects and it's not just the arcades and the games. It was also the people that I met along the way, and that come into my life. Some have come into the hobby and now they're gone. I'm rocking this great Arcade1up hoodie, made by a community member that was very much into Arcade1up, but has since moved on to real arcades. That's what this hobby has, right? It's ignited a passion in people to maybe seek some of the original. A lot of people are very happy with sticking with Arcade1up in the 3/4 scale size, and I'm happy for those people too. It's great. It's awesome. Keep on rocking, keep on enjoying yourself. And I look forward to seeing what other people come up with, inspired by whatever, to make custom mods and custom projects. I'm excited about what Basic Fun is going to come out with. I'm interested to see. I can't wait to check it out. But am I going to be buying these new cabinets to mod and change and turn into something else? Probably not. But never say never. But for right now, Arcade1up, thanks. It's been real. It's been fun. But for me, it's time to move on. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think about the project. Let me know what you think about Arcade1up and the hobby in general. Thank you so much all for stopping by and checking out the channel. You have a blessed day, and I'll see you all right here next time. Peace. Now I'm going to go play some games. And I'm not crying. I'm not crying. You're crying. You're crying.